No, you never have to actually put on a glove, stride up to the plate with a bat in your hands to play the field. All you have to do is ride the pines for 43 game days worth of credit. I'll give you a perfect example. You guys are my age. You remember the track star from Mississippi State, Herm Washington?
Oh, sure.
Who was the pinch runner?
Absolutely, for Oakland.
Okay. In the 1974 World Series between Charlie Finley's Oakland A's.
I think he got picked off.
Mike Marshall picked him off. That's a very good memory.
Yeah.
But he scored 17 runs during his career, had about the same number of stolen bases, never played the field, never came up to plate. He's one of the guys that is impacted by this situation. If MLB and the union see fit to do right by these men, Herm Washington will, in fact, get an annuity. And the point, to answer your question, is that, no, it's game days worth of credit. The obvious example is when Stephen Strasburg of the Washington Nationals was called up on June 7th, well, Stephen Strasburg in 45 game days or 43 game days will probably make 9 starts, but he's going to have 43 game days worth of credit.
And let me ask you, Doug, before 1980, that 4-year rule, was that broken down into, when we say 4 years, is it broken down into so many games per year, 4 full years, 4 partial years? Because a lot of these guys I saw on the list, you look on Baseball Reference, it said they played like parts of 5 seasons.
They kind of go up and down.
But did it get broken down into like a game type thing?
No, it's got to be 4 full years worth of credit. Now that can, to answer your question, that can be spread out over parts of 6 or 7 years.
I got you, because we had Carmen Fanzone on the show.
Yes.
And he's
a perfect example. Now, didn't his wife win an Emmy? Isn't she?
Sue Rini.
Grammy.
A Grammy, I beg your pardon.
Yes.
She's a very talented, and he's a talented trumpeter in his own right.
Right. So, yeah, he's a great friend of the show, and he's been on the show, and he's not one of the ones, obviously, that's hurting like a lot of these other ones,
But
Tony.
they pretty much told him when he was in Hawaii, you're not coming back up.
He was very bitter as far as the whole thing, Doug. And if you look at Baseball Reference, it says Fanzone, 5 seasons, but obviously a couple years he played 60 games.
Yes.
He did not. He fell a little bit short, Doug. Very bitter. He would be another one of the guys on that list. But again, it's kind of crazy the way the thing happens, and based on a salary and the way things are going, and it's just so ironic because Tony, when you think about it, say you were a player and you played over the last 10 years when the going was really good, and you were a decent player. If you played 5 years making good money, you probably would never need a pension.
Well, it's true.
And we're talking about guys that basically, and I was doing a little math before this show, Doug, trying to see, because there's so many ways this can be solved. There's probably a ton of solutions that we could put on the table. But I said, why don't we try this? Say 30 of the highest paid players, not even everybody, 30 of the highest paid players threw $3 million, Tony, into the pot each. Now, this is $3 million of just 1 year of their salary. It's just a portion of their salary. Say that's $90 million spread out over all those guys. They could give each guy probably about $100,000 each.
Well,
to give him something.
It would be it would be dignity.
And that's figuring low. But Doug, there's got to be so many solutions. I mean, I could come up with them. You've probably gone over many in your head.
Well, here are the 2 solutions that basically have been proffered the most. Either pay. First of all, let me just, for the benefit of your listeners and viewers, you guys probably know this, but there is ample precedent that's already occurred. The pre-1947 players, if you recall, I said the Players' Pension Fund was established in 1947. You had to be on the roster on the 1st of April. Well, all those guys who didn't play or who weren't on rosters in 1947, they cried foul, and they, in October of 1997, MLB unilaterally awarded them $10,000 payments. Now, they weren't true pensions. They would pass when when the player died, so there would be no widows or designated beneficiary money.
Doug, not to interrupt,
owed.
but did that include the jumpers too, like Camille and Magley, the guys that went to the Mexican
That's exactly who. I'm very good friends now with the daughter of Harry the Horse Danning,
Wow.
who was an all-star catcher for the New York Giants back in the 1930s, and he was one of the men who were hosed at that point in time.
Yeah.
The other precedent was, of course, in January 1997 when Major League Baseball, at their executive council meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona, unilaterally awarded the veterans of the Negro Leagues what I will call charitable contributions. Again, they're not really pensions.
Yeah.
They will pass when the player passed. And while I think that's great because, look, let's put our cards on the table. The color of my skin, the color of your skin, wouldn't automatically preclude us from playing the game of baseball, but it did obviously rob a lot of talented ball players who happen to be African-American descent of their time in MLB. So props to MLB for doing that. Here's my problem with that. I'm not an attorney, but any employment labor law specialist is going to tell you, wait a minute, you're awarding monies to people who, strictly speaking, had no employment contractual relationship with the employer, yet these guys who I'm writing about clearly had contractual relationships with MLB, and they're on the outside looking in. Meanwhile, the ball players who didn't have an employment history are getting monies? How fair is that? It's not.
It is, and you make so many good points, Doug, and we have a few minutes. Obviously, our fans out there watching, we are on the phone with author Doug Gladstone. The book is called A Bitter Cup of Coffee. You can go to the website, Tony, at bittercupofcoffee.com to get more information about the book and how to go about getting in the book. But as far as in 2011, the Players Union, everybody seems to think, okay, we'll think about it. But, Doug, what do you think is going to happen in 2011? Will they finally address this? Has there been enough pressure put on these people?
I don't. I can answer very, very simply. I don't think there's been nearly enough pressure put on both the league and let's give co-billing here to the Major League Players Association here because they are just as culpable. They are just as complicit in this, if not more so. And I'll tell you why I feel that. And I'm a union man through and through.
Sure.
But you have to ask yourself, do these ball players today even know about this situation? And if they do know about it, fellas, that's doubly unseemly.
That's even
worse.
What,
they don't want to give back a little bit of their pie, a little taste, a little slice of their pie, so that the pioneers of the game who allowed the A-Rods and the Matt Hollidays and the Ryan Howards, just to name three, to command these ridiculously obscene, ludicrous salaries. Mind you, they're talented ball players, and whatever the market's bearing, hey, they're entitled to it. But what about some respect for the guys who paved the path for them to get these incredibly huge salaries?
Yes.
What about that?
That's so true, and that's pretty much the gist of what Tony and I've talked about as far as the book, Doug. I mean, when you think about it, and we do the math, when guys like Jeter and A-Rod, $30,000, $40,000 per at-bat, Tony, and you have a guy like Jimmy Qualls that can't pay health insurance, there's a major problem, and I'm just so glad there's a book out there. Doug, our time is just about up, but again, the book is A Bitter Cup of Coffee. You can go to the website, abittercupofcoffee.com. We could talk more in depth of it. Maybe we will again someday, Doug.
I would love
to. Continued good luck with the book, and it's such a great topic that you brought out, and hopefully the more people know about this, the more it'll get out there and something might get done. But thanks for joining us. We'll continue to be in touch, and my best to you and your family.
Bob, Tony, thank you very kindly for affording me the opportunity. I appreciate coming on. And, yes, I hope in some small way the book has facilitated a dialogue so that come spring training, when Michael Weiner has publicly said the collective bargaining negotiations, because the contract